coming up in this episode. But Walker claimed that Freddie then shot 3 arrows into Travolta's door. I have to admit, when I first heard this story, I thought it was ridiculous and hard to believe.
I did not know that.
Thanks for stopping by. I Did Not Know That Classic TV Edition. Please like and subscribe.
I'll think about it.
That's all I ask.
These days, much of the public knows who actor Freddie Prinze Jr. is, but maybe younger audiences don't know who his father was. Back in the 1970s, comedian Freddie Prinze pretty much went from a complete unknown to a big star and appearing on magazine covers across the United States, seemingly overnight. His real name was Freddie Prinze. His mother was Puerto Rican and his father was German, although he liked to claim in his act that his dad was Hungarian, probably because it sounded funnier. While he chose the stage name Prinze, he really wanted to be king, because he wanted to be known as the king of comedy. But well-known comedian Alan King already had that last name, so Freddie decided on being the Prince of Comedy instead. Incredibly, in 1973, when he was only 19, he got his big break when he first appeared on The Jack Paar Show and then The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. That was a huge accomplishment for anyone back in those days, especially a new comedian only in his teens. Amazingly, the very next year in 1974, he was starring in his own TV show called Chico and the Man with longtime veteran actor Jack Albertson. The show was a hit in its first season and debuted in the top 10. Tragically, in 1977, only 3 years later, at the age of 22, he was dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. And in 2020, Jimmy Walker, a fellow comedian and a good friend of Prinze, revealed the bizarre story that Freddie had planned to take the life of John Travolta using a crossbow. So how did he so quickly go from a fresh-faced young comedy star to planning a hit on someone and then suicide? While I saw a few episodes of Chico and the Man back in the day, I was not a regular viewer of the show, but I do remember Prinze well and some of Freddie's trademark lines like,
"Looking good!"
and
Not my job.
he seemed to always have a big smile on his face and appeared carefree. A happy guy who didn't seem to take things too seriously. As I began doing research on this story, that was far from the truth. Freddie Prinze had a tough childhood. He grew up poor in a rough neighborhood in New York City. He was chubby, and he was often the target of bullies. His mother said he often felt lonely as a child. He was fascinated by movie and TV stars, and when he could afford to, he'd buy magazines that talked about the famous people that he'd seen on the screen. One of his best friends said Freddie was a short, fat white kid that everyone used to beat up. He threw a football like a girl. I don't ever think he spoke Spanish. This left Prinze with lifelong insecurities. To make matters worse, at one point he took ballet to try to lose some weight, and as he mentioned in one of his comedy bits, the other kids found out, and you can just imagine how that went over. What Freddie was good at was making people laugh, and he would imitate famous people and even do comedy bits for the other kids in school. Despite his early success and sudden fame, he wasn't able to shake his insecurities. At 17, he made his first attempt at suicide after his girlfriend broke up with him. At age 20, he got married because his girlfriend was pregnant with a child who was now Freddie Prinze Jr. To deal with his insecurities and depression, he was prescribed large amounts of Quaaludes. Unfortunately, he was also taking other drugs, including cocaine, to fight his sadness. His behavior became unpredictable and erratic. To compound the problem, he also began carrying around a gun with him, showing off and playing Russian roulette with it in front of others. His friend Jimmy Walker said that one day, Freddie and he were in a store that had racks of magazines when Freddie noticed John Travolta on the cover of Teen Beat magazine. And it really bothered him. Prinze said, "I'm gonna kill this guy. I'm the biggest star on TV. I'm the best guy. Everyone knows me. I'm the funniest guy." Walker said he tried to talk him out of going after Travolta, but Freddie bought a crossbow and they even drove over to where Travolta lived. Fortunately, he wasn't home. But Walker claimed that Freddie then shot 3 arrows into Travolta's door. I have to admit, when I first heard this story, I thought it was ridiculous and hard to believe. But then I saw some clips from a film about Prinze called Can You Hear the Laughter? And it became more believable. His insecurities and drug problems caused him to become more and more explosive and emotional. There are 2 disturbing scenes in the film where he bullies and harasses his stand-in because of his insecurities. He apparently became paranoid that the stand-in was after his job. If that's accurate, it makes you realize that perhaps Travolta's life really might have been in jeopardy.
No, he was just playing, that's all. That's all.
When his wife Kathy filed for divorce, it meant his possible separation from his 10-month-old son, and it hit him hard. He also was facing some financial difficulties because he liked to throw money around. He had also been arrested for driving while under the influence of drugs. That made the newspapers. Della Reese appeared with Prinze in Chico and the Man, and she said he was a little boy. He really was. He had too much too soon. While he had threatened suicide in the past, at this point in his life, he went through with it. It is interesting to note that years after his suicide, in a lawsuit filed by his parents over insurance money, a jury ruled that it was an accident because he had taken too many drugs to know what he was doing. Well, let's end on a brighter note. In 2004, Freddie Prinze Jr. was there when they awarded his dad a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. Check out some of the nearly 100 videos from this channel. Hopefully, one of them will make you say,
I did not know that.